Hi, this is Claire Weber, founder of HerDad, coming to you today with my guest, Anthony Plasick in Chicago, who has generously agreed to answer some questions I have for all of you dads out there. Obviously, I have never been a dad, and so there's only a limit to how I can be helpful. And so I wanted to begin this series talking with other dads to share some of the wisdom from the front lines about their experience being a dad to a daughter. So Anthony, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here, and some of the conversations that I've had with you leading into today's meeting have been fantastic, and I really appreciate what you're doing for us.
Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. Well, we were connected through a mutual friend who suggested I talk to you, and in some of our conversations, I really thought, like, these are the kinds of things that I want other dads to be able to hear from dads themselves. So let's jump into a couple of questions so you can share more about it. Okay. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your daughter. How old is she?
So, my daughter Isabella, who goes by Izzy, is a full 8 years old now. So, it's been a very fast 8 years, and she's a wonderful third grader and doing a little bit of remote learning right now. So, pleasure to have her in the house with us this week.
That's lovely. And do you have other children?
I do. I have a 4 year old little boy. His name is Anthony, and holy cow, two totally different people. It's pretty amazing the contrast between the two of them. Very very much similar, but yet wired so differently.
Absolutely. I can imagine. That's kind of one of my next questions about that. Since you do have a son and you do have a contrast, do you find it natural and intuitive about how to connect with her as compared to your son, or do you find that there are differences?
There are 100% differences. I think for me, that's been one of the challenges in my role as dad. To me, it's a huge responsibility, and have absolutely appreciated the opportunity to be a dad and have that role. But the way that I think is not the way that she thinks, and so from that end, it's there's times where I've completely missed connections, but I'm learning as I go and trying to implement different methodologies to really be the best dad that I can for her.
That's great. I hear so many dads talk about that, particularly when they have sons, when they can really notice the contrast of usually with their sons, there it's a little more natural because at least as a dad, you've had the lived experience of being a boy. So at least you can remember back to your own experience. Whereas for dads, you've never had the lived experience of being a girl or a young woman. So you don't have that even to draw on. So a lot of dads ask their sisters, their wives, moms, like, how do you draw wisdom about how to connect with her?
Sure. I think, in all honesty, there's been, an opportunity to have a little bit of learning by some trial and error. From a frame of reference perspective, I have siblings that are sisters, and so have, some context. I went in with perhaps some preconceived notions, and boy, I made mistakes. I was wrong, and I think, unpacking who she is as a person has been the most important thing that I've done to really understand how she's seeing the world and her perspective. And for me, some of those challenges lie in I'm a pretty analytical, straight to the point person, and she's more of an intuitive, sensitive type of wired individual. And so for me, communication is paramount and so fundamental, and how to connect and build relationships. But also, I have to be very cognizant of tone, and how she's perceiving the emotion behind what's being shared. And that's been, one of the challenges. And that's why I say there's been some trial and error. There's been some mistakes that have been made along the course of the way. But I'm a reflective person, and I think that's very important. And I aim to always, when I'm reflecting, maybe detach a little bit, if you would, some of my emotions, so I could really gain perspective to see how she's seeing it, and then recalibrate my approach and how I communicate.
That's so well said. That's really incredible. I think that, well, I know that a lot of the dads that I talk to talk about similar things in general. It is some gender stereotyping, of course, but there's more statistics that in general men are more linear, analytical, logical, and in general, statistically, girls and women are more, as you said, more intuitive and um, kind of work in a little bit different ways. And so, as a dad, what you're doing, what you've just described, is exactly, what she needs the most from you is your willingness and ability to note the difference and to do your part to meet her where she is, right? Because she can't meet you where you are. She doesn't have the awareness or the capacity to go like, oh well, dad's analytical and intuitive, so how can I adapt to his style? So it is on you as the dad to do exactly what you're doing, is to learn to tune into her style. And that's, can be one of the more challenging things for dads to do. So it sounds like you're doing a really great job on that. um my question for you is, we've talked about dad moves here at HerDad. I asked men to brag about some of their best dad moves. So what I mean by that is something that you've done, maybe a single incident or something that you do ongoing with Izzy that you feel is having a big impact on her that could last a lifetime. So can you talk to me about some of your best dad moves, some of the ones you've shared with me?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be honored to share some ideas here. And again, work in progress. And
Absolutely.
knowing that I need to really meet her where she's at, it has been an important process for me in discovery. And I think our best thing that we do in order to really understand her and understand her perspective and how she sees things is to really spend quality time together. And I think, knowing my personality well has been a part of the process. I know who I am. I've done a lot of the personality testing. I'm, leveraging some of that information to help understand where she's at. But I think you really gain perspective and understanding where someone is at when you really unpack how they're thinking about things and how they're seeing things. And for us, what we do in terms of consistent behavior that gives us that moment and also qualifies underneath the concept of quality time, which is one of her drivers in love language, is really what we call pillow talk. It's how we digest the end of the day. And so for us, we've gotten into a great routine where at the end of the day, we go and go in her room and lay down for bed. And we've always read books. To me, I'm a reader. And so I'd like to instill by example behaviors of reading. And so we'll go through a book, but then we'll talk about the day. And I think that's been the most fundamental thing that we've had success with, because at that point in time, I just get to ask questions. I get to go in and be inquisitive to how she's feeling about different things, how her day went. And one of our rituals and practices is to talk about the best part of our day. And with me, the goal behind that, from what I know, is to teach gratitude and really to teach a positive mindset. And what this has allowed us to do is deconstruct the day if there weren't good moments, and unpack it to really understand why, to understand how she was perceiving it, to understand perhaps other people's perceptions, and then work towards problem solving around some of the things that may have come up if there wasn't a great moment in the day. Or perhaps if there was a great moment, really talk about the values behind some of those moments. And so I think that's probably been one of the most influential things that we've done. And so, my litmus test for understanding the depth of how that has impacted her is, as of recent, my wife and I kind of switched roles. My son, I think he's a little bit more of a mama's boy.
Mhm.
But he and I were having a routine where I was helping him go down and put him down to sleep. And then I would miss some of the opportunities to have our discussions with my daughter. And we could tell like our relationship just felt a little bit adrift. Like we weren't just not necessarily knowing where each other was at in the moment. And so I think just really creating the opportunity to have dedicated time to talk to each other and really understand how she's seeing the world, and then perhaps maybe give her some of the things that I've learned to equip her with the right tools to navigate certain different sets of circumstances. And I'm pretty vulnerable with her, where I'll share, hey, I've made mistakes around that. Hey, I've not done this right. I want you to learn from the things that I've done, perhaps well, and things that I've not done well. And I think approaching it with an inquisitive and curious mind, but yet being vulnerable and not trying to fulfill a persona of superhero dad, has been important, because it contacts her with a sense of having a genuine approach to a relationship, and the importance behind having constructive communication within a relationship so that you can come to understand the other person and how they're feeling and thinking about what's happening within in the set of circumstances or their world at that moment.
That's amazing. Wow, there's so many things there that are incredible. So many things about gratitude and digesting the day. That's such an important thing to digest our lives, because we can go through our lives just kind of like living them, but to digest them and to really take the nutrients in from the day. And something that really strikes me too, fathers teach children empathy. So it's often thought that comes more from the mother side, but I hear a lot of that in what you're saying is that fathers teach children empathy um, by teaching them, how another person sees the world, and it often will come from maybe, if you are more firm in like boundary setting and things like that. Children learn empathy because you're telling them like, no, because here's the consequence that's going to happen on the other side of this. So you're teaching them to think about other people and consequences and the world, which develops empathy within them. And so by you as her dad sharing your life and your world and your vulnerability with her, you are literally helping to develop her empathy even more than that happens with her mom. Fathers are definitely the leaders in teaching empathy. So that's just there's so many ways that is just incredible. Thank you so much. That's an awesome dad move. There's
Thank
so
you.
many things that are coming from that. Some that you probably can see and know, and some that will, maybe a mystery, and that is just a great foundation for her whole life. And it's also a wonderful example for her, like you said, to deconstruct men and dad as superheroes that are infallible, which also will help her play a key role in hopefully helping to destruct some of these really toxic messages that men are getting in the world. That, for so many men, they get the message from women that we'd rather see you die than fall off of your white horse. Like, it's really inconvenient for us if you have emotions. Like, can you please just keep those underway? So you're playing a key role in helping her to be part of that solution too. A girl who will grow into a woman who is comfortable seeing a man in all of his range, in his emotions and in his strength and all of those things. It's just an incredible gift for her and actually for society, that you're contributing to a girl that will grow into a very healthy, well-adjusted woman in so many ways with great empathy because of what you're teaching her.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And for me, it's important. With what I do in my profession and where some of my passion lies is
Yeah.
deep digging into neuroscience. And so I try to apply some of, what I've learned to structuring the conversations and again, giving her some toolkit in order to navigate things. And I think empathy is such an important piece in understanding people, but also, helping her strategize a little bit in approaching certain situations, and I think that has been helpful too. There's been instances where there's drama, at her grade, which blew my mind, and I'm not good with drama. I'm to the point type of person, and but we started to deconstruct it and then strategize a little bit and giving her tools, which I think the important piece of that is not only sharing empathy, but also having confidence to stand her ground in who she is as she's learning who she is becoming. And I think those have been some of the important takeaways. But there is a cautionary tale too that I wanted to share, and that is, as I've gone through this, we've developed a great bond. But I also have to jump into the role as dad at times, and if things are done along the lines of perhaps not the most appropriate, then I have to kind of change a hat a little bit, and that has become confusing. And that's some of the mistakes I make because we have this great, wonderful bond. But I also have to parent. And so, I think from that side of it, coming into it and again, leading in my approach and understanding that I have to context things for her has been very helpful to mitigate some of those mistakes and letting her know, hey, I'm your dad. Here's the reason why we have to do it this way. And my role for you is to protect and provide. And you have to understand there's things I'm going to need to do that. But that does not mean I don't love you any less, or that does not change our relationship, but understand that, that this is what I need to do as well. And I think that's been helpful. And in fact, one of the discussions that is ever never ending seems to be the car seat discussion.
Mhm.
And really, and we have it probably once a week, if not more. And So I just try to let her know, hey, I'm trying to protect you, and I feel better if I am doing that, where I understand you don't want to be in this because it makes you feel this way. And we kind of go round robin. But for me, I think, as I've unfolded this process, I've also been learning to make sure that I am addressing, some of the things that I need to do to continue to be true to the role that I have, and what I need to do from a long-term perspective for her well-being also.
Yeah, that's a great point. The balance of it all, the full range of
Mhm.
being her dad, that you can share the emotional experiences with her and the vulnerability. And also you are there to protect, to provide, and all of those things. And, when you and I talked last time, that was one of the things that we kind of connected on, that this idea of that you're doing a really good job of articulating to her why you're doing the things that you do about the car seat and all those things. Because what I shared with you was the little story about my dad when I was 34. He insisted on buying me this new furniture, and he just kept insisting. And I said, Dad, I'm good. I don't need the new furniture. But he kept insisting. And I didn't understand what was driving this need for him to buy me this new furniture. And we're walking into the store, and I kept saying, Dad, it's generous, but you don't need to do this. And he grabbed my arm and said, Claire, you don't understand. Like, I don't know if you can provide and protect yourself. And like, I just want to give you this furniture so that I know that you have nice things. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, my whole life, my dad has been wanting to provide and protect and all these things, but I've been pushing it away because I didn't understand that. The message I was taking is like, I don't think you can take care of yourself, or, you need me to do this for you. So with your daughter, with the car seat, she's like, oh, it makes me feel like a little kid, or whatever her objection might be to it. But you telling her why you're doing it, why it's important that you are there to protect and provide for her, is huge. And continuing that message for her, because the instinct will never leave you to protect and provide for her as your dad. That'll never leave you. She might be 34.
It's
um,
it's true. I tell her
yeah,
that. I said, you will always be my baby,
yeah,
no matter what point in our lives, you're my baby.
yeah, absolutely. And some of the advice I say to dads is to do what you're doing, to articulate to your daughter always why. Because if not, what happens to a lot of women, a lot of girls who become women, is they interpret that as like, dad doesn't think I can do it. Dad doesn't think that I'm strong enough, or that I can take care of myself. Da, 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 da. So they internalize these messages, which are well-meaning, from their fathers who just want to provide and protect and make sure they have everything they need and they're safe. They internalize it as not being able to do it right or to do it good. And so it's
Mhm.
one of the unfortunate mismatches of what's a natural, healthy instinct of a dad. But if it's not articulated, it's too easy for the girl to miss the message behind it. So keep doing what you're doing and letting her know why.
Thank you. Yeah, communication is so important, and for us, um, in all of what I've been doing, one of the things too that I've always tried to do is have a little bit of fun with it, and joke around, and have some humor. I think that's important, but also treat her with respect too. We go on dates, and I want her to know what a good man would treat her like, so that she continues to understand where her value lies. I think that's very important. My end goal with some of that is to have confidence, but also know that, hey, sometimes things don't work well, and a little bit of humor can be a good antidote. And so we like to goof around a little bit as well. And she appreciates some of my jokes, which are absolutely terrible. I inherited that from my dad. A lot of them are just play on words, but she loves it because I kind of stump her a little bit. And so, yeah, it's been fun along the way, and I think that's important too, because as I'm approaching this with a sense of seriousness, because I'm shaping her thought process, I'm shaping who she's going to be as my role as father. I also want to not come into it with this like stout seriousness where we're not appreciating life and having a little bit of fun while we go through it. I think that's been an important piece of how to approach this as well. That's resonated with her.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's so well balanced, and it's just like again, it's the full range of things as her dad that you're helping to instill and model for her. So I do want to make a point here for our other dads who might be listening. Anthony, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for work? Because as you've kind of alluded, that does inform a lot of how you have these skills to approach your daughter. And I want dads out there to know that if it's not all as intuitive or as buttoned down as Anthony's talking about, like, don't feel bad about it. He has spent a lot of time and intention, right? Anthony, you want to talk a little bit about that
Yeah,
with some of these
absolutely.
things?
Thank you. For me, I've had a long history in leadership, and I do leadership consulting and development training. And so, I put together a framework and around doing that. But I think the framework, although consistently has been applied towards business, it's also applies to life. I think leadership in life is a very important piece of the puzzle. And what really started me, to pursue it with more depth was the fact that I had the responsibility of being a father. And I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what I'm doing here, and I want to do it well because I know the impact level that we can have for our children. And so I plowed deep into a process of self-learning and really coming to understand, what leadership is all about, and then taking some of those key principles and applying them to what I'm doing. And again, with that, there's been some misses along the way. And one of the things that I did is set up a process to help her learn values. And we put up what we call the word board, and we talk about value-based words, and then talk about how to apply them in action, and maybe set goals to be actionable around them. And for me, I'm like, oh, this is a great idea because I know all this through leadership, but you know what? It was my idea and it wasn't hers. And there was a great lesson learned in that. And so there's a ton of resources out there on leadership development, but I think timing is very important, and knowing when to apply some of your great thoughts. Because if it's not, if it's your thought, not theirs, the gravitation towards it might be a little bit less than desirable. So I learned, but I think, really being a student of leadership has been really
Mm.
what's created that pathway for me. And I had at a point in my time a critical question to ask myself, based off of, in the moment health, a significant health situation is, hey, how would I set my children up for success? What is the one thing that I could do to help them see success in the way that they so would see it? And that's really to help them how to think well and really allow them to understand who they are, and then be able to connect with people, to put themselves in a situation where they control the culture around their life. And I'm all about positivity and mindset. And so for me, a lot of this exploration was piggybacked off of that critical question and saying, hey, are there things that I could package up in terms of the framework that I put together, and give it to them as a thought legacy so that they would have some tools to navigate some of what we experience in the world around us.
That's amazing. It's so thoughtful and so intentional and just really, really incredibly inspiring. If anyone wants to get in touch with you to learn more about your work or being a dad, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure, great question. You could find me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the biggest social media platform that I'm on. And you punch in my name, Anthony Plasek, and you should be able to find me. And the last name is Placek. Be more than happy to have a discussion with you, share some ideas, maybe share some mistakes and lessons learned. And can talk to you also a little bit about the leadership framework that I've put together, that I think has been very helpful in really connecting with my daughter, and trying to move in the right direction of me fulfilling my goal of being a great father for her.
Excellent. Well, thank you again so much, Anthony. And I think that Izzy had a favorite joke. Is that right? Favorite dad joke that she wanted you to share?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, and, and this is probably a little bit embarrassing, but I'm going to share it because she was really asking me to do it. It's so goofy and simple, but she does, as a young kid, always like to pull the finger joke.
Oh yeah, of
Um,
course.
so, we've always had a little bit of fun around that, and I think that's what keeps us grounded a bit. So,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So good. Well, tell Izzy thank you for and duly noted. Her favorite joke has been shared on air.
Yeah, I was a little reluctant, in all honesty, to share it, but hey, you know what? I obliged and like to live to
Yeah.
my word, and told her I would do it.
That's right. Well, what a dad won't do for his daughter, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed our chat and look forward to staying in touch and hearing more of your dad wisdom along the way. As she grows, you will grow, and there'll be lots of great stories to share.
I agree. Thank you so much. It's been an honor talking with you. And again, really appreciate what you're doing for us. This has, been helpful along the way and learning from you through the discussions that we've had. So thank you again for having me on.
Thanks, Anthony.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.